are recording.
Okay, good morning. Coming to you live from Gümüşlük, Bodrum, Turkey. I'm in the today moored up in a natural bay, and so you might hear some squeaking from the balloons in between the boats. Anyway, last week we talked about just introducing ourselves from who we were and where we came from and what motivated us. And the thing that motivated me was really sailing and getting around the world. And there was a whole plethora of events that built up to me leaving my safety of my homeland in Oakland at the time and jumping out into the world. And you sit in a place for a long time, in my case 30 years, even more maybe. The last time that I had really traveled where I changed my life was right after college. And I made a very cognizant decision when I was 24 to not get a job with an engineering company or my father's company, who was also a contractor. He wanted me to work with him, or start my own gig, because I just gotten my degree in engineering and business. And I elected to buy a one-way ticket to Hong Kong, which led me into Southeast Asia and Australia and New Zealand. I was gone for about 3 years, and I wanted to see the world, and I did. I saw a lot of it. I saw that chunk of it, and I made a decision at that moment to promise myself that I would come back and live this life again. Hopefully, I wanted to have a family and take them with me and share that experience. I did, in fact, go back to California. I got married. It took me I got back when I was 26, going on 27. By the time I was 29, I was engaged. I got married in 1993, which would put me at about 31 years old. And by 33, I had my first kid, and then I had one every 2 years after that. So I ended up with three kids. And that was in 95, 97, and 99. And then by 2000, when the kids were still young enough to take with you, shall we say, easily, because they don't complain about going where you take them when they're that age, before they're 12. For better or worse, you're totally responsible for every move they make. And when I'd gotten married, my ex-wife now made me a hard promise that she would go sailing with me and traveling with me at some point. And that point arrived when I was about 40 years old. It was about 2002. And by 2004, I was 42, and I was like, okay, we really have to go now because the kids will get too big. And then through a whole bunch of arguments and disagreements, she decided she didn't want to go. And she was too comfortable in the safety of her existing home and life. And I was, of course, very disappointed and sad, and I was frustrated, and I'd made plenty of money in order to retire at that point. And so we ended up making a compromise through a lot of concessions, and we moved to Central California instead of Northern California, and I built out this huge ranch, and that was all very fun and nice and lovely. And it was at this, you can look it up if anybody's interested. It's 1331 Tiffany Ranch Road in San Luis Obispo. It was a place called Edna Valley, Edna, Edna Valley. This beautiful, bucolic valley full of vineyards and rolling hills and just gorgeous. It's like dropped out of a postcard. And I bought 10 acres right in the middle of that, and I built out this amazing ranch, and I raised my kids there, and we had horses and animals, and I built a house manufacturing machine. I patented the software and hardware, and really got into life there. And that was a compromise instead of going sailing and taking off. So it was sort of an adventure without the fear of leaving the safety of all the people you know and the things that you've accumulated. And that was the compromise that I reached with my wife at the time. So 8 years later, I was now 50, going on 51. I was 50 years old. It was November 7th, 2012. My ex-wife now decided that she wanted a divorce and all of the things that we had created together for 22 years. Ended up a very horrible 2 years of lawsuits and disagreements. Ended up not seeing my kids. Ended up losing the majority of my closeness with the relationships with people. We had friends, and of course, when you're married like that and you have friends, they're usually other married people with kids that are similar in your age. That's your closest group, which makes sense. And they always choose sides. And they'll almost always choose the side that falls to where the kids go the most, because other parents want their kids to be with their kids. And they figure, well, that's your disagreement between the parents. And it's true. So, but my ex-wife was the dependent, so she got the house, and then the kids stay in the house. And so it eradicated me from almost everything I'd had. So I don't see kids. I mean, the judge didn't rule that you can't see them, but when they're 14, 16, and 18, they have their own lives. They're busy doing their stuff, and all they really want from the house is the support. They want the refrigerator to be full of food, and they want to ride to wherever they're going. That's the majority of what they want. They're not going to reach out and go hang out with your parents. Not until they're 25 or 30, maybe, when they need to make new decisions in life. So that just put me alone again. And so I had this time to contemplate, what did I leave before I got married? Because it was almost like not even having a relationship anymore. I had to build entirely new connections with almost every facet of my life, my work, my play. You know, you go from playing with the kids, doing stuff on the weekends, to not. And so you have to make an entirely new life, to reinvent yourself. I did a lot of things that I'd left behind, like I started up rugby again, I surfed more. I tried to surf more anyway, that's a whole nother story. And I learned to become a rugby referee. But I always wanted to tour the world. And I wanted to see as much of the world. I wanted to travel as much as I could. My work is very difficult to leave for long periods of time. I cannot work online. I was a builder. I built houses. And you have to be there. And when you start a job, the whole house, they generally take between 9 and 18 months to build. You really can't leave. There is no point. I mean, maybe you could leave for a couple days, maybe a long weekend, maybe a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, if it falls on a holiday. But then you're going when everybody else is going. But to really travel somewhere and drop into society there and live there, like today, it's very popular to be a digital nomad. There's no way. So in my life, I pretty much stayed in one community for 30 years. And so you get used to being this creature that does, lives like that. And don't get me wrong, I would go away on a lot of little weekend trips. I wasn't scared of I had my own plane, I would fly around, I would drive a lot, but it was always 1 or 2 days. And you can't get that far. I go all over the West. Even in my plane, you could get a couple states away. And then you want to land and see what's going on. But I'd go down to Mexico. But to really travel, to really dig into, live with the people the way they live, eat at the times they eat, drink what they drink, talk, get involved with the events that they're doing, etc. You got to stay a while. So in order for me to actually do this dream, I would have to give up my job. I would have to give up my new sets of friends. I would have to give up a lot of things because it's going to be multi-year. It's going to be years, at least a year, if not more, because traveling by boat is very slow. So I had thought about this event all my life, really since I was probably 8 years old. It had been a dream to get out and, go to countries and ports and villages where you just have never seen the way they live. And people do live differently, a lot differently everywhere. Culturally, we are very different. And I had known about those cultural differences from the way my parents raised me and my brothers and sisters. We had a big house. My dad was a successful guy, and we had this big, way too big house. And so we'd always invite, we were a host family to people who were coming to Los Angeles who needed a place to stay for a while to sort of get acclimated. And they'd come from everywhere, all over Africa, all over Asia, all over South America. And every couple of weeks there'd be a new family living with us. And so we'd share rooms and move people around. And I think my parents did that because they were both first generation immigrants. Like their parents moved to America, had them. And so they were raised with this immigration mentality, right? But because America, that's all it is. So they felt like maybe it was their obligation to give back. And I was just growing up in that, and I would meet all these people from China. I mean, that was Red China back in the day. I don't know if you guys would even remember that term, Red China. It was closed, it was like this communist place. Oh, scary. All over Southeast Asia, all over Africa, And this was right after, the blacks in America, all this turmoil and stuff. But then we'd have blacks come from Africa that were totally different. They would live with us. So I was really into this whole idea of like, I wanted to see the cultures where those people came from. And so I was very curious about that. So the pressure or the belief in my head of going should have been a simple decision once I had enough money to create an income for me to travel. So I was, after that divorce problem, and that lasted a couple of years, I was 53 years old, and I started working for my own, money that I could keep. And it took me about 4 years, and I was able to cobble together a big enough pile to where I felt I could go and travel for an extended period of time and have it last, who knows how long. Well, I could go a few years anyway. Just living on the cheap, live shoestring. We call it traveling on a shoestring. That's how I intended to travel. If I have to ride a bicycle, fine. If I have to, take the 2 a.m. flight, for $400 less, that's what I'll do. I'll do whatever I have to do to stay within this very small, tight budget. And by the way, my goal was less than $100 a day for everything. Food, health, clothing, travel, hotel. And that's not a very big budget. You think, go try to get a hotel room somewhere in the summertime, anywhere where it's popular. I mean, just a stupid room, Airbnb room in the Greek islands in the summertime is $80 kind of minimum. And then you got to pay for everything else on top of that. And then you got to travel. So I was doing it on the skinny for sure. So I would have thought, by looking back at this, that it would have been at 56 years old now, a pretty simple decision once I had this chunk of money sitting there. Just how fast could I pack the bag and run out the door? And so one of the things I needed to do was rent my house. I had built my 87th development. And when I say a development, I build whole houses in mostly Central and Southern California. This one was in Oakland. It's a beautiful house. It's like 3,000 feet. It's you can see it on, if you go into my Instagram, into my links, I put it on there. It's on Airbnb. So it's a modern, gorgeous executive home. So I just finished that house. That was my 87th creation. And I had to rent it out to make sure it paid the mortgage, because I had a mortgage on it. There's taxes and there's expenses. I said, oh my God, is this thing going to cash flow? Am I going to make enough to make this thing pay? And I started renting it in April, and I got some Airbnb clientele. That was great. A few people came in, and then I got some 5-star ratings and a few more people, and it started to fill up. And I was like, okay, this is great. And I kept one little tiny room in the basement off the garage that I lived in. There was no kitchen in it or anything. It was just, and I used to go to my friend's bar and he'd have burgers in the afternoon. And I kind of lived like that, ride my motorcycle around. But I would take good care of the house, and I would do all the cleaning and change the sheets. And I was the manager, and dialing in how the rental would work. It took a few months. Right at that moment when that occurred, in May, no, it was March, April, I got a letter from my ex-wife. Now, when I had divorced her 5 years prior, my agreement was that all of our deals were done. It was called a global settlement, and that means neither one of us has any rights or claims on the other, period. Everything we've done up to that point is settled, period, done. So you can't come back and, it's like you sign off. Any claims I had against that person is over, even though we were together 22 years and we had other business besides that. So that was a big relief for me when I had that signed. Well, all of a sudden, 5 years later, after that, I get a new lawsuit. I was like, there's no way. We had a global settlement. No, they want to spin it back up. She's claiming back taxes. She wanted me to pay her taxes from 2012, which was no way right, because she was in control of the company at that time, blah, 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 blah. She should have paid her taxes, and she decided not to, and trying to get out of it on some little technicality. Anyway, it was, I ended up having to fight that. And that took me March, April, May, June, July. So during that time, there was many days when I'm A, renting the house, hoping it'll rent, B, hoping I can win this lawsuit, because if I didn't win it, that would preclude me from going. I would have to be there to fight that. And those lawsuits can be drug out for years, easily. And when they summon you back in, yeah, you can send a lawyer, but I don't want some lawyer who doesn't have all the information I have in my head representing me without me being there. So this is going to kill my travel. If I don't eliminate this lawsuit, it's going to kill my travel. If I don't rent out my house for enough money, it's going to kill my travel. So what's my backdrop? If those two things keep me from going, I don't have another income. I have decided 2 years before to not have another job ready to build, because I am a developer. My jobs take between 9 and 18 months to build. Before you start building, there's at least another year of permit and processing. So in order to get a completed house today, you would have to start at least 2 years, mostly 3 years ago. It's like planting a tree before you get your first fruit off the vine. It's just like planting a fruit tree. Yeah, it takes 3 years to get good fruit off a fruit tree. And that's exactly what a development project takes. So I decided 2 to 3 years before that I was going to quit. So here I am 3 years later, ready to go. It's April. I'm getting my people. Finally, I'm in my next phase. I'm starting to get renters. So my plan during that next few months was to make sure I had the place set up. I got to get a good house manager, cleaner, whatever, to do the turnovers. And then I get sued. I'm like, oh my God, will this work? And okay, so I fight. I did win. That's another whole long story. I won't get too into it, but eventually I pulled in enough evidence. I threatened her with a counter lawsuit if she didn't just quit. I had evidence that may have even led her to be thrown in federal prison. And I will disclose that at some point in the future. That'll be a whole nother. But when they got that letter, they quit. They let me go. But it wasn't until July. So it took me 4 or 5 months of researching my old files in order to find the proof that she had done things bad. She had done bad things. And what really brought it up is that she sued me for her back taxes. So when I put those together, and I put it together with all the information I had before, I was like, oh my God, this was criminal intent. And so I wrote a letter to her saying, you don't want to go down this road. You should just leave that alone and leave me alone, and we'll all go our separate ways. Pay your taxes, leave me alone. And so she did. But I didn't know that. This was a battle that was happening, and if she decided just to say she was crazy or the lawyers convinced her, I could easily have been sucked into multi-year. So that would have just kept me from traveling. It would have ruined my entire plan that I'd been dreaming of since I was 8. I thought I was free. Nope. Okay. So my state of mind during that time, when I got this house done, I'd done everything, I let go. This whole thing is about letting go. I had let go to the point where I didn't start a new job. And I planned to enough money to just survive so I could see the world. So when I won that, I would have thought looking back that, yay, let's get the fuck out of here. Nothing's holding me back. Run like hell. So I was renting out the house, and then I decided, maybe it'd be better to have one full-time renter for the whole year. So I put an ad in, and I got some responses. I ended up having this guy respond. I had a bunch of guys respond, but this one guy who ended up renting it, his name's Justin Wilcox. Justin Wilcox is the head coach for Cal Berkeley. So that's California Berkeley. It's a part of the UC California University system. In America or in California, we call it Cal. It's affectionately known as Cal. So if you go to Cal, it's the sort of the figurehead. It's the probably the most popular of all the UC system. And there's I don't even know, 10 or 15 colleges in that UC system. And it's more of an elite, it's a pretty elite place to get into. They have an amazing football team. And if you know anything about American football, it's a big damn deal. It's on Saturday, it controls the TV market and now the internet market. They raise more money from their football team than any other thing on the college. More than donations, more than anything else, the football team pays for the school. The royalties for people being entertained by watching football is what funds our education system. So they had better hire a really good coach. So the people they hire, and okay, he's part of the Pac-12, I think. It's the Pacific 12. So there's 12 colleges that all play each other. And I don't know them, but it's an organization. And then there's the East Coast has one, and the West and the North, and they're broken up around the country. The Pac-12, they're part of the Pac-12, and they play each other until they get sort of a pyramid thing. And whoever wins that goes plays the East one. And then between all of those games, the royalties are off the charts. Millions and millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars brought into the college for that. And with that, they pay for all the other college sports. Women's, I can guarantee you, women's lacrosse, nobody's watching. You're going to get 20 people out on the field. Women's basketball, even men's basketball brings in a good amount, but baseball a little bit, but football, that's the crown jewel. So this guy, Justin Wilcox, rents my house. And I didn't even know who he was. Because he walks to the house, and I said, this is quite a home for a single guy. I said, what do you do? And he goes, oh, I'm the coach for Cal Bears. I was like, oh, and I knew what he meant when he said that. I was like, wow, dude, kudos to you. That's quite an honor to be chosen for that. And then he signed that right at the end of July. Because once I knew I won this lawsuit, then I knew I was really free. He was supposed to move in September 1st. And at that time, he asked me, he goes, why are you renting out your house? And I said, because I'm going sailing. I'm going to go sail around the world. And he was like, oh my God, you're my hero, dude. You have to do this. This is so awesome. That's a dream. You're following your dream. Good for you. So he gave me kudos just like I did him. So he moves in September 1st. and I was sitting in the basement. I helped him move in, and then I have my little room, and it looks out into the garage. I leave the door open. I can see where he parks his car every day. And September 2nd, he drives up, waves to me, I wave to him. This goes on, second, third, fourth, fifth, about the 10th day. And he gets home every day at about 6 o'clock after he coaches all day. And September is a big time of the year for him in college. I mean, that's when the games are starting, you know, and that's the start of season, that's the start of semester. It's a big damn deal. They're getting ready. They have to win. And they have to have a winning season. And that means, I think they play 10 season games. They got to win 5. If they don't win 5, or even really got to win 6 out of 10. They have to have a 60% success rate, or their ratings fall off radically because they're no longer in contention to go to the big games. So that's how they sell it, right? So there's a lot of pressure on this guy and all the players. Now, consider the players who are fresh to a college environment like that. These are young men, 18 years old, maybe 19. They spent their entire lives perfecting their skill of academics, because you have to have like a 4.0. That's a straight A. You got to be a straight A student to get into Berkeley. On top of that, you have to be an amazing athlete. So imagine being that guy in high school. You're the king of the school. You're probably a valedictorian or somewhere way up there. To get chosen, you're probably one of the best athletes on the field, because they cull from hundreds and hundreds of high schools to bring them in. You know, it's a really sharp decline of how many people go from the high school level to that college level. Not many. And so if you're one of those chosen ones, there's a lot of pressure on you to perform. And you're used to performing in high school against people that you've known for 10 years, at least, because we start playing football like that when kids are 8 years old. And then they go until they're 18. Well, they know all the same people, right? They know Billy at that college or that high school across the way, and so on in clubs. They've faced these guys over and over since they were 8. So they become familiar with them in the same pool. So they know how fast that guy runs. They know who's tackling them. And they've been able to stand out against those people. Now, in just 90 days, they went from that environment to being in front of the world on a stage. And the people, so in football, you have the quarterback. He's behind a line of blockers. And on the other side are linemen who are trying to kill you to get around those blockers. Those guys in high school you were facing were probably 200 pounds. The guys you're facing now are probably 300 pounds. And they're fast, and they're solid muscle. If that guy gets his hands on you, he's probably going to twist your leg in half and destroy your knee. Your career is going to be over in a heartbeat. And it's not going to happen in 5 seconds like it used to. It'll probably happen in about 2 seconds. So everything is sped up at a radical. This is just 90 days before they were playing in high school. Now it's bam, bam. Big, strong guys coming at you. It's war. It's real war. And you have the entire world watching you on TV.
Yeah.
No, you're responsible to win, to keep the school going. Pressure is insane. Who the hell manages those people? The coach. So this guy isn't so much a coach for how to stand correctly and throw the ball. He's a coach to keep your head straight, so you can manage yourself, to keep focused on the right things. So clearly, the people who hire him know who they're looking for, and you got to find people who know people. He's got to look at people and know who they are. He's got to look at these kids and understand them and relate to them so that they can perform, not freak out, not do drugs, not quit. They're going to be scared. But to get them to overcome their fear. So he drives home every day and sees me sitting there in my little room. And I'm tapping away on my silly little computer. He looks over at me after about the 10th day, and after we say hi a bunch of times. And on the 10th day, he doesn't wave hello. He gets out of his car and he walks over. And remember, this guy's probably 40, 42 years old. At the time I was 56 or 57. And he walks in to my room. His doors are open, from the garage. It's a nice day out. And he says, "Can I pull up a chair?" I said, "Sure." And he just sits, he looks at me, he goes, "Hey, what are you doing?" I said, "Oh, I'm taking care of this bullshit." And he says, the thing, your dream that you told me about you seeing the world, you have this opportunity to do this. And you have the ability, and you have a set of conditions to allow you to go. If you let yourself down, you're going to let everybody down. Because I'm counting on you to go too. I'm inspired by you. So this coach who inspires everybody tells me I'm inspiring him. Never occurred to me how important my dream was to everybody else. Then he gets up, he goes, "Look, I've had a hard day. I'm going to go up and make a Manhattan. Chill out. You know what to do." And he walks away. And it was that moment I got out of my head. And instead of seeing myself from all of the blocks that all the things that could possibly happen to me, I looked out and said, I matter to everybody. I do. I was like the quarterback. And my ball was to make the strip go. And he allowed me to overcome my fear because he saw the fear in me. Now that was his job because he does it every day with these college players. And he saw it in me like that. He didn't ask me. He just told me. He knew so well. So I was so lucky that this guy popped into my life. And I would say to everybody that what you're thinking, your dream, is every bit as important. And you have to get over your fear of what, not only your comfort zone of just being on your couch and say, "Oh, I'm not going to do it, I'm not going to do it," to actually taking the chance to get out the door and do or write or whatever the fuck it is that your dream is of doing, and actually push it out there to the world. The rest of humanity needs it. That was how I overcame that fear. And the next day I took off. It took about 2 days to get on a plane. I ended up on the road to finding this boat, which is where this whole podcast come from, of Finding Grateful.
I guess we have to thank Mr. Wilcox.
Wilcox. Yeah.
We have to
We all
send.
gotta follow. Wilcox. I don't even know if he's on Instagram.
Yeah, we are going to send him a thank card. A postcard from Turkey and Greece. Yeah. What an inspirational story, man. I mean, one thing that strikes me is that actually the dude is like 15 years at least younger than you. 15 years younger.
Yeah, about 15 years younger. Yeah.
And yet he found a way to inspire you. And another thing is that he knew exactly how to inspire you. So from his experience, and he knew, I guess he said everything he said was with confidence. It was like,
oh, yeah.
I think, he was sure of you. He was kind of putting not only in words, but also in his voice, I guess, right?
Well, the thing that it was a piece of cake for him. This was like me standing up another wall and making it straight, right? It's like, oh, you got a thing I do every day, is leveling out a slab of concrete. It's like, oh, you got a bump in the middle here. Let's grind that off. You got a bump in your concrete. I know how to fix that. If somebody hadn't done it, they're like, oh my God, what do I do? And I was at that point, right? A bump in my concrete. Well, he could see that because he does it every day with these guys. I mean, he sees people scared, and so the quarterback is going to drop back into what we call the pocket. That's where there's a bunch of linemen around him protecting him, and he has a 1,000, 2 1,000 count in order to see what's going on and throw the ball. Well, if he walks back there and starts worrying about he doesn't have 3 more seconds, he only has 2 seconds, and he's worried about that, but the future might fail, he'll never use those 2 seconds properly. So that's where I was, but he sees that constantly. He sees that look in his eye. He sees that hesitation in people. And with his extreme calm, he knows how to massage it out of people. And for sure he did with me. I didn't even know this guy, right? I really don't know him. I met him once before in July when he signed the contract. He moved in. We talked, maybe for an hour, hey, where you been? What are you doing? Where you from? It's cool. What a great job. Here's the layout of the house. Here's how you turn the heater on. Good luck with that. I'm gonna be gone. Oh, that's great. That was it. So it wasn't like he knew my history or what was going on, or blah, 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 blah. You just see it. He's like, oh, that guy's stuck. I'm going to go tell him because that's just his job, right? I mean, that's his nature. That was his nature. I do think he cared about me. I think he cares about everybody. So I'm not saying I was insignificant, but I was damn lucky. And I think it had more effect on me that he didn't know me, because if it was somebody who knew me well, okay, they would understand it better because they would know all the history that I'd gone through in order to get there, because I had every reason to run like hell given the opportunity, given a horrible divorce, given another lawsuit, given 30 years of not seeing the world, and that's all I wanted to do. So everything lined up. It's like, hey, it's your turn, dude. This is your turn. I was petrified. Petrified is the word. You know what that word means?
Yeah. Basically, you become Petra.
Petrified.
Petra in Greece means the rock. You are
stone.
Yeah, you become stone. You become inactive. It's amazing stuff. It's amazing stuff. What you said about familiar people and people that know you that may not have the same effect because they know what you've gone through. I think what's very important, one thing that I've heard from other people is familiarity breeds contempt. And I've seen that many people that they know you for long, they either drop to justify your actions because they want to be your friends and they want to be your loved ones and don't want to push you too far. While a stranger will tell things as they are. He will see that you don't have abs and he will try to inspire you to have abs. But your mom or your brother will not go that way, even though he might know exactly that you need that improvement in your life. You need that inspiration.
Yeah, and you're more cautious too with people you know well because they might have an alternative motive. Like, what if the guy who's telling you to go actually was in love with your girlfriend too? And he thinks, oh, if you go, maybe I'll get my next chance with her. You're like, well, you've been looking at her a lot lately, and now he's telling me to get the hell out of here. But does he have another motive? Who the fuck knows? I just totally made that up. That didn't occur. But he just, whatever the fuck, or maybe it's a job opportunity, or maybe they really don't like you and you don't know. Well, this guy had no agenda for me. I was lucky, and I would like to spread that opportunity to anybody who's willing to listen out here. And if you want to follow me and talk to me personally about this, please reach out.
Before you go, guys, please find below in the description, there's a button there to go and subscribe in our email list where we are going to provide many things from our lives, many news about gratitude. And of course, we're going to send everybody who is getting in the email list a beautiful booklet, a beautiful ebook that you can actually print out. And it's basically, what is it there, Duane? Let's close with that.
I created a book. It's called California Builder. And it's a bit of a metaphor towards this whole series we're doing. But it's really a story of all the things that I built over 30 years, and where I started and where I ended. Beautiful photography of a lot of the houses I created all over California, from old ranch houses to a series of barns to beautiful high-end moderns. And I just write a short little story about how and where I built each one and what my state of mind was. And so, yeah, it's called California Builder. So if you sign up, send us your email, you can download this book. It's printable and coffee table size. You can make it into a nice book. And just if you like photography and if you like architecture and stories of how to go from being a little kid who's going to be a builder to being a full master builder after 30 years, that's the story.
Excellent. All right, guys. So thanks for watching. I hope that you got something from this beautiful story that Duane shared with us. See you on the next episode 3. So Duane signing off from Athens. See you in the next episode, Duane.
Thanks. See you later,
Ciao.
Jason.
Bye.